So I hate hypocrisy. And here in the parliament in Strasbourg, I usually almost always see hypocrisy, this kind of hypocrisy. It seems that you are only interested in the rights of one minority, the so-called LGBTQ minority, despite the fact their rights are 100% guaranteed in the member states of the Council of Europe. It is not punished by law in any of the member countries to belong to the LGBTQ community. There is no discrimination against them.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone who did us the honour of reading the reports. I'd like to thank everyone apart from one person who clearly has not read the reports and who showed his nationalist imagination based on virility and this very patriarchal, white and heteronormative context. But what can we expect from someone who is the vice president of the former Jobbik extreme right party in Hungary?
Szeretettel köszöntök mindenkit ismét innen Strasbourgból, az Európai Parlament épületéből, de még mindig az Európa Tanács tartja itt a parlamenti közgyűléseit, és én, mint a magyar delegáció tagja, a Mi Hazánk mozgalom részéről képviselem Magyarországot, és már megint egy olyan vitában fogok majd részt venni, ami mi másról szólhatna, mint az LMBTQ, stb. Emberek jogairól, és hát szeretném arra felhívni a figyelmet, hogy rengeteg ennél sokkal fontosabb probléma van ma Európában, de valamiért az Európa Tanács ezekről a problémákról nem szokott tudomást venni. Parázs vitára számítok, tartsanak velem, nézzék meg, hogy mit fognak reagálni Európa politikusai a felszólalásomra.
Over the last 20 years, we've been progressing along the path of recognition of LGBTQI people's rights and their essential right to live in dignity and in freedom. Well, yes, those rights are under threat. They are threatened by conservative movements. They are threatened by fascist movements that are coming back to power in some countries. They are threatened by conspiracy movements, ultra-religious movements. Yes, they are under threat. And so is the freedom of expression and of association in Europe and in member states of the Council of Europe for LGBTI people is gravely threatened in some cases. And to implement the preceding measures that have been voted on by this assembly, like the prescription of violence and prejudice and discrimination against LGBTI persons. We also want to forbid conversion technologies and practices in those countries where it has not yet been forbidden, and to invest in education for gender equality and to train teachers on this, to support sexual education programs and emotional education programs that are inclusive identities, that are properly adapted to students' ages in schools, to get the police and other forces of order to be aware of LGBTI issues, diversity, to include diversity in the relevant legislation, and where it's not the case, to have the right for persons of the same sex to marry.
This report calls on the member states to implement the European Court of Human Rights, refrain the discrimination and constitution amendments, enforce laws against hate and discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender characteristics, and support the visibility of LGBT persons in the public space. Pride demonstrations and festive celebration of diversity and enhance the visibility of LGBT people. Additionally, the national authorities are called to repeal anti-LGBT propaganda and to investigate and prosecute bias-motivated violence. In order to tackle violence and discrimination against LGBT people, the report calls on the member states to ban conversion practices that suppressing a person's sexual orientation or gender identity and which the LGBT community as well as health. The report also asks for member states to legalize the same-sex marriage and to guarantee legal recognition of gender identity.
Yes, I am a fighter against bigotry. And this is my weapon. And I wear this because I'm privileged. I wear it for those who cannot wear it. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. We must dismantle the barriers that stand in the way of equality brick by brick. We must challenge the status quo and confront the bigotry that poisons our society. And we must do it now, before any more lives are lost and, to hatred and ignorance. Because a society that embraces diversity is a more healthy and much better society. Because, dear colleagues, it is not gay people who should fight for gay rights. It's not Palestinians who should fight for freedom. It's not Ukrainians who should defend their territory. It's for all of us to defend what is right and condemn what is wrong. It's for all of us to defend human rights. Thank you.
Yes, colleagues, I'm a homosexual man, but my sexuality does not guide my ideology and it doesn't guide my political choices. It only and solely guides people that I want to love. Now, you from the populist movements and Mr. Orban and Ms. Meloni, I have a message for you. You talk about sexual propaganda. Well, you will never, ever choose who I want to kiss in the street. You will never ever tell me who I can marry. You will never tell me what family I want to create and who I want to love. And the message I'd like to say to all these people and all LGBTI queer plus people listening to us, be proud of who you are. Be proud of who you love. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe is with you, is at your side. And thank you very much indeed for being proud and remain proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motkin. And now, Mr. László Toroczkai from Hungary.
Thank you, Madam President. So I hate hypocrisy. And here in the Parliament in Strasbourg, I usually almost always see hypocrisy, this kind of hypocrisy. Let us be honest. We are talking about the rights of minorities while the German-speaking Alsatian natives have been oppressed in this city for decades. Now you want to bring Kosovo into the Council of Europe while it is obvious that the Serbian minority is being oppressed in Kosovo. You have never been concerned about the fact that in 2 European Union member states, in Romania and Slovakia, the collective rights are not granted to the native Hungarian minority. There is no autonomy in either of these countries, and Hungarians are even punished for using their own national symbols in these 2 EU member states. Of course, you are not interested in the brutal oppression of Hungarians in Transcarpathia by Ukraine either. The Ukrainian government, which you support, refuses to enforce the decision of the 1991 legal referendum of Ukraine, which decided that Transcarpathia should be an autonomous province. The Hungarian minority in Ukraine is oppressed and threatened, but you do not care. It seems that you are only interested in the rights of one minority, the so-called LGBTQ minority, despite the fact their rights are 100% guaranteed in the member states of the Council of Europe. It is not punished by law in any of the member countries to belong to the LGBTQ community. There is no discrimination against them. The algorithm of the international social media platforms promotes LGBTQ ideology in all countries. They have parades in almost every country. However, as biology and nature dictates, same-sex couples cannot have children. This is not a question of human or minority rights, and it cannot be part of core values to force children to be exposed to sexual propaganda. These so-called values cannot be defended by the Council of Europe either. Keep your hands off the children. This is what the regulations that this report is now concerned about are all about. So don't be hypocrites. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just remind you that the debate and the report is about freedom of expression and assembly of LGBTI people in Europe, and well, it's clear that the report was needed at the moment. So now I give the floor to Mr. Lacroix.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone who did us the honour of reading the reports. I'd like to thank everyone apart from one person who clearly has not read the reports and who showed his nationalist imagination based on virility and this very patriarchal, white and heteronormative context. But what can we expect from someone who is the vice president of the former Jobbik extreme right party in Hungary? Even animals could get married tomorrow. If you adopt single-sex marital laws in countries, or if you adopt legislation to recognise transgender people, this is what we hear from some people say. It's a social danger, apparently, for people, in particular for transgender persons. And this is the hate speech that we still have to contend with today.